Whether you're looking to find inspiration to write a new story or facing writer's block, it can be challenging to muster the creativity needed to combat the blank page. It's been said that, if you're serious about writing, you should do it regardless of your mood. You can't wait for inspiration to strike. Instead, inspiration should follow your actions. Simply sitting down to write, or making a habit of it, can help you to find your creativity. That said, there are ways to rustle up inspiration. None of these ideas are grandiose. Some might not work for everyone, and many may have varying levels of success, offering enough inspiration to start a new project, or possibly only a short story. Before we continue, I'm Riley, and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel, I discuss fantasy books, explain lore on worlds and characters, share my bookish opinions, and offer the occasional writing advice. If any of that sounds like your cup of tea, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. Aside from simply writing or managing your time, there are 8 quick ways you can inspire yourself as a writer. Some of them might seem obvious, but it can be easy to overlook them. Number 1. Go outside. Fresh air has been proven to have a number of benefits. Going outside is just good for your health, and a healthy writer is an inspired one. While outside, you can breathe in fresh air, soak up vitamins, and exercise. However, going outside has other benefits. First of all, it gives you time to think. In our busy world, it's challenging to find the time to daydream. Even when we don't have a deadline, there are innumerable distractions, including television, the news, and social media. Going out, whether it be to a park or simply around the block, forces you to put your phone down and relax. During your walk, you might visualize a scene, work out a problem, or even have a new idea. You might become excited about an old project again, if given the space to picture the characters or concepts which so excited you in the first place. Second, the environment itself might inspire you. You don't have to travel across the globe to find a novel experience, though certainly that wouldn't hurt your creativity. Going to a museum, trying a new park, or dropping in on a local aquarium are all activities which could excite your imagination. For me personally, the place I find most inspirational is the forest. Surrounded by trees and rich smells, I always come away with the experience not only relaxed, but brimming with fresh ideas. Before you know it, you've mapped out an entire short story and must rush home to write it. Number 2. Read new books. Sometimes going outside is difficult. The weather can be nasty, or your time might be limited. Of course, even if you can't go somewhere new physically, books allow us to travel in our imaginations. There is nothing like reading to fire the imagination. In all likelihood, it was a great book which made you want to be a writer in the first place. Reading in general is important. Stephen King himself has said that if you don't have the time to read, then you don't have the time or tools to write. Reading of any kind is great for you, but as a writer, it's especially important that you consume new works. We'll most recommend you read in your genre, so that you might see what others are doing, what's popular, or even how you could be different. Many also suggest reading outside your genre. As a fantasy writer, you'll find plenty of fantasy series to lose yourself in. However, depending on your story, you might also want to take inspiration from such genres as romance, drama, thrillers, and so on. Many authors mix genres, with paranormal romance being a good example. If you want to write the next Twilight, you'll need to not only dive into classic fantasy stories, but the popular romance books too. Plus, in addition to improving your skill as a writer, reading new books will inspire you. The introduction to new worlds, beautiful prose, and clever characters will push you to create something just as good, if not better. When you fall in love with that new protagonist, you might be inspired to dive deeper into your own hero. Number 3, reread old favorites. While reading new books is essential for writers, there's nothing wrong with rereading old favorites. In fact, if it's inspiration you're after, revisiting a favorite series, whether it be one you read as a child or one you read every year, can be critical to regaining lost creativity. Think about why you wanted to become a writer and when. If you think hard enough, you can probably point to a single book or series which inspired you in the first place. There might be multiple sources of inspiration to which you return, and for each, there will be reasons why. When it comes to your favorite books, which parts grabbed you? Did the story's world building drive you to invent your own universe? Were the characters lifelike, prompting you to emulate them? Was the description lush, inspiring you to describe everything from the sun to the shadows? For me, Harry Potter was one of the biggest sources of inspiration. Those books absorbed my imagination as a child, the ideas and tone within them helping to shape my own world on a subconscious level. Other stories which inspire me include Twilight and the works of Cassandra Clare. Twilight doesn't have the best writing in the world, but its ideas, a rainy small town, a girl falling in love with a supernatural entity, and the blending of fantasy with everyday drama speak to me, encouraging me again and again to explore those concepts in my own stories. Moreover, you can suffer from not only writer's block, but the infamous reading slump. If nothing new is grabbing you, and you're struggling to read, revisiting an old favorite can not only increase the amount of reading you do, but remind you of what excited you enough to become a writer in the first place. Number 4, engage with other mediums. Continuing with the idea that you should be reading old and new stories, it doesn't hurt to explore other mediums. At the end of the day, a writer should always be reading something. Even if you can only manage 15 minutes a day of a book, that's valid. Reading aside though, there are thousands of stories waiting to be discovered, some of which may inspire your writing. Other mediums to explore include graphic novels, visual novels, comic books, manga, anime, webcomics, video games, and the classic standbys that are movies and television. All of these mediums offer great stories in a wide range of genres, including fantasy, drama, slice of life, romance, horror, and so on. Plus, reading graphic novels like Heartstopper still counts as reading. Many BookTokers or BookTubers will even include these in their book hauls. I, along with several of my writer friends, have been inspired by video games in particular. For me personally, I found inspiration from the Dragon Age series. Each of the games offers well-developed characters, in particular your companions, who come replete with their own backstories, traits, and arcs. In addition to learning the history of these characters, you get to follow their arcs in real time, watching them develop and change depending on the events of the story. For its characters alone, I love Dragon Age because it's given me new ways to approach my own characters. Other games which are great for writers include the Tales of series, as these also emphasize the personalities, banter, and stories of their characters. As for television, my primary source of inspiration is Buffy, again because of its focus on the characters, and how the show blends drama with elements of fantasy or the supernatural. The show has taught me, as a writer, how I might also weave the fantastical elements of my series between the characters' personal lives. Whatever medium you choose, exploring stories through other means can inspire you when reading alone isn't enough. Number 5, absorb writing advice. Sometimes a lack of inspiration comes from a lack of confidence in your abilities, or from struggling with a particular part of the creative process. Sometimes you just need a prompt to think about your story in new ways, and consuming writing advice can do just that. The easiest way to find writing advice is to watch videos like this one on YouTube. However, there are also writing advice blogs, with Writer's Digest and Jane Friedman's blog being good places to start. Writing-oriented magazines, nonfiction books, podcasts, and more. However you choose to find advice, it has never been more accessible. Consuming writing advice will not only improve your skills, but it can inspire you as well. This is because hearing the advice will force you to think about your own story, such as how you might apply it. Hearing the advice might even make you aware of shortcomings in your own work, prompting you to dive into your project anew to tweak it. For example, if you find a video on how to write a compelling villain, you'll be inspired to explore your own antagonist. Watching a video on outlining might inspire you, now that you know what you're doing, to start a new novel. Whether you're lacking inspiration or not, you should always be striving to learn something new. Even when you become a bestseller, there's always room to improve. Watching videos, reading blogs, and listening to podcasts will be an ongoing process, but the inspiration which comes with doing so is a bonus to consider. Number 6. Find a second creative hobby. Sometimes you just need another outlet. Perhaps you're excited about your story, but can't focus on the words. Whatever the case, having another creative skill, whether you pursue it professionally or as a hobby, can open your mind. Many writers, including those like Tolkien, also drew pictures. Some writers have photography blogs. Some create stories through video games, and others, like myself, create videos. If you draw, sketching might help you to visualize your characters, design new monsters, or picture other concepts. If you're not great at drawing, creating mood boards is another fun way to picture your story and inspire yourself in the process. On a professional level, you might even incorporate your other skill into your writing. Tolkien interspersed his stories with sketches, but others might choose to adapt their novel into a graphic novel using their drawing skills. Some writers even create multiple streams of income. Mandy Lin is one such author. In addition to writing books, she also runs a YouTube channel and, using her graphic design and drawing skills, designs book covers for others. Dozens of writers in this day and age add video production to their list of hobbies, not only because it's fun or potentially profitable, but because it allows you to stretch your mind in different ways. Yet another writer incorporated music into her work. You might include your own written songs or actual pieces of sheet music within your novel. However you choose to approach your other hobby, whether you mean to incorporate it into your writing or keep it separate, having other skills allows you to think outside the box, potentially drumming up new ideas or inspiration in the process. Number 7. Find writer friends. Often, writers struggle to find inspiration because they feel alone. Nobody else understands us. When we want to stare off into space to ponder people who don't exist, others think we're crazy. When we want to invent alien races, debate how monsters should move, or why it would be cool to live on a floating mountain, non-writers are miffed. Therefore, every writer needs a handful of writer friends. It doesn't matter if they're at the same level as you, though in some situations that can help. It doesn't matter if they're doing it professionally or as a hobby. What matters is that you have someone to talk to, and someone who can understand both the passion and the struggle of your craft. There are plenty of groups online. There are author tubers to follow, writer talkers to engage with, and Facebook groups to join. However, while these are invaluable, you also need personal friends. By that, I mean you need writer friends you'd actually hang out with in person. It's common sense. You want close friends who share common interests with you. And why wouldn't writing be included as one of those interests? Sometimes, if you're stuck, one of your friends could provide a solution. More often, they'll help you relax or comfort you with a confession of their own struggles as a writer. When you commiserate with others, sharing your achievements or concerns, you'll just feel better about your craft in general. Plus, if your friend is starting a new project, a little healthy rivalry on your end might prompt you to place your own butt in the chair. Finally, inspiration comes easier when you have support. with a handful of writer friends, you also have a handful of potential beta readers. You can give each other feedback, take notes, and be inspired by the need to improve not only your own stories, but those of your friends. Number 8. Make time for yourself. This is the most obvious one on the list, and yet it's also the most easily forgotten. Too many writers forego sleep, skip breakfast, or don't exercise. In order to be inspired, you have to feel good, not only physically, but mentally. Remembering to sleep and eat are critical, but those aren't the only needs you have to address. As a writer, you also need downtime. Moments, hours if possible, where you aren't thinking about writing at all, but are simply enjoying yourself. You need to take the time to lose yourself in a good television show, sit outside on a beautiful day, go for a swim, and so on. In a few words, it's essential you have fun. Burnout is common among creators. Even the most passionate artists, those who live and breathe their work, can't maintain frantic schedules forever. If you don't even have the time to watch TV, let alone think, you'll go crazy and your work will suffer for it. You'll start lacking motivation. You'll forget why you cared in the first place. You'll write stories or pump out content to fulfill a quota, rather than to enjoy the work itself. And as a result, you'll lose your love for your craft. You never want to push yourself into a position where you hate writing or dread sitting down at the keyboard. If your craft has become a chore to you, it's time to reevaluate your schedule and carve out time for yourself. It's tempting to juggle several projects and pump out words, but you won't be able to give your ideas the love they deserve unless you keep yourself healthy. In addition to breaks and you time, you also have to fit in friends and family. Lack of socialization is a huge mood killer. Being completely introverted might even lead to depression. And I don't need to tell you that depression is terrible for your creativity. You don't need to socialize all the time. If you're someone like me, who's often happy alone, you might only need a weekly visit or less. How much you need to socialize will depend on you. Everyone is different. That said, even the most determined introverts need a little socialization. This can be a coffee with a friend, a day spent with your brother, a week at your grandparents' house, or a phone call. What's important is that you're catching up with someone you don't necessarily talk to every day. It can seem challenging, but it's essential. In order to feel inspired and excited to write, you must look after yourself. Eat healthy foods, work out when you can, go to bed at a reasonable hour, have fun, and spend time with friends and family. Who knows, spending a few hours with that one eccentric and exasperating aunt might even inspire you to create a new character who acts suspiciously like her. In conclusion, finding the motivation to write can be difficult. Nobody enjoys writer's block, and it can be frustrating, especially when you're passionate about your story and craft and want to get back in the chair. As a writer, particularly if you want to do it professionally, you can't wait for the muse to speak to you. That said, there are a handful of activities you can do which will encourage the muse to drop by more often. Whether it be reading more widely, exploring other mediums, making new friends, or looking after yourself, there are multiple and simple ways to inspire creativity within yourself. If you take the time to experiment with these strategies and to look after your health, you'll be surprised how inspired you feel. You'll always have bad days, of course, and none of these are fix-all tips. But hopefully, by implementing these habits, you'll find your inspiration more easily. What do you do to inspire yourself to write? Do you struggle with writer's block, or have you been doing well? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy writing!